I'm Anastasia, a fashion designer with over 20 years of experience and a sewing educator. And I'm really excited you're here to share another sewing adventure with me today. Welcome to Sew Anastasia. Today we are going to make a super cute turtleneck dress made out of a rib knit fabric for fall. And this is the dress we're going to be making today. Super easy to make, super easy to wear, dress it up, dress it down. This is definitely a go-to dress to make and add to your wardrobe. This dress is going to be your new go-to. It is so simple to make. This is also a great serger project. You can serge this entire dress together, all the seams. But if you don't have a serger, that's okay. You can also use your lightning bolt stitch, a zigzag stitch, or an overcast stitch to complete this project. This is also an original Anastasia design, so you'll be able to download the pattern at sewanastasia.com and sew right along with me. If you're not already a subscriber to Sew Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and following me on all of my sewing adventures. Supplies for this project are going to be super simple because the dress is super simple. You're going to need some matching thread. You're going to need your snips for all those little extra threads. You're going to need your rotary cutter and mat or a pair of scissors and some chalk. You're also going to need your pattern, which you can download from sewanastasia.com. And you're going to need a nice stretchy knit fabric. I'm going to be using this gray rib knit. And you might be wondering, how much fabric do I need to buy? Well, you're going to need to buy 1.5 yards to 3 yards, depending on what size you cut out. So make sure you measure your pattern or look for the reference guide. The first thing you need to do is download the pattern and print it out. Once you print it out, make sure you cut out your size, and now we are ready to cut out the fabric. Make sure you're following your grain lines when you cut out the fabric, so that way the stretch is going across your body. If you have a 4-way stretch, make sure you're following your grain lines, so that way your grain lines are parallel with your selvage. Once you have your paper pattern pieces cut out, you should have your skirt pattern, which is going to be cut 2 on fold. You're going to have your turtleneck, which is going to be cut 1. You're going to have your back bodice, which is cut 1. You're going to have your front bodice, which is cut 1. And you're going to have your long sleeve, which is cut 2. Now that you have all those pattern pieces cut out of paper, you're going to cut them out of your fabric. If you remember my video from last week, I made this turtleneck, which you can make as a standalone piece all on its own. But this week, we are gonna make it into a dress. That means we are gonna make the top again, and then we're going to attach a circle skirt to the waist. Through the magic of video, we are gonna travel back in time to last week, and I'm gonna show you how to make that top. And then when you're done with that, I'll see you again for attaching the skirt. So I'll see you in just a little bit. Woo! So the first thing we're going to do is sew together our shoulders. So we have the front of the bodice and the back of the bodice, and we're going to place right sides together, and we're going to match up the shoulders. So we go over to the serger, we're just gonna serge up the shoulders. So let's head over to the serger and serge them up. So I have my 2 layers of fabric together, and I'm going to serge them together. Now that we have one side done, we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Now that our shoulders are sewn up, we want to set in the top of the sleeve, and we are going to do this on the serger. So watch carefully. So this here is my armhole, and this is the top of my sleeve. The first thing I'm going to do is place right sides together and clip the very top of my sleeve. And now I'm going to work my way to the underarm, and I'm going to clip the very edge down here on one side, and then I'm going to clip the edge on the other side. Now that I have these 3 clips in it, you can see I have the ends and the very top clipped. And now when I serge, I can slightly pull these knits and make sure that they line up. And we're going to serge around the top of the sleeve, putting the top of the sleeve into the armhole. So I have both layers lined up, the armhole and the top of the sleeve, and I'm gonna make sure they stay lined up And I'm going to be pulling the bottom one a little bit more so that way I can ease the sleeve cap into the armhole. Make sure your layers stay nice and lined up. You don't want to pull too much because then you're going to have a bunch of gathers on the other side. So you want to pull just enough to make it fit. Also, in your serging curves, you just want to make sure that they stay lined up with the straight line on the plate of your serger, or that you're looking at the needle line on your foot. So pick something as a guide and always make sure your fabric is straight when it's going into the serger. Our sleeves set in really nice. We have no gathers or puckers, so it's nice and smooth on the outside. And then if I open it up on the inside, you can see where we serged. We serged right around that U shape. Now that we have the sleeve set in, we are going to sew together the underarm seam and the side seam all at the same time. So what we're going to do is fold right sides together. We're going to line up our side seams, and we are going to clip at the underarm because we really want those two seams to line up. You can put a few more clips in it. I like to put one down at the bottom, the opening of the sleeve. I like to put one in the middle. And now I'm going to work my way down the side seam of the shirt and put one at the bottom. And we can put one in the middle too. Now that we have it all clipped up, we are going to serge this all together in one swoop, underarm and side seam. So let's do it. Make sure you're lining up your edges and lining everything up with the marks on your plate for your serger. Our serge is looking great. Everything is lined up really nice. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side, the armhole, the underarm seam, and the side seam. Our shirt is really coming together and it is looking great. Next, we are going to put the neck of the turtleneck on. First thing we need to do to the rectangle before we put it into the neckline is fold it right sides together with your grain line. So you want your grain line on the left, make sure it's not going horizontal, make sure it's going vertical from you, and we are going to sew up this long side right here. Now that we have the side sewed up, we are gonna fold this in half with the wrong sides together. Basically, we're making a giant rib knit cuff, so you wanna make sure that you have a finished edge on the outside and on the inside. Now that you have this folded, grab the neckline of your turtleneck. For attaching the neck to the neckline, we are going to make sure our shirt is inside out and we have our neck folded in half. Now what we're going to do is insert the neck with the folded side down, so that way the raw edge of the neck is matching the neckline, and make sure your seam is either at a shoulder or you can put it at center back. I'm going to be placing mine at center back. This is a great time to use your clips. I'm going to clip center back in place first. And then I'm just gonna work my way around the neckline and make sure that all the edges are lined up and that nothing is bunching or pulled too tight in one direction. Now that we have everything clipped together, we can serge all 3 layers together. Serging in a little circle can be tricky, so serge a little bit, stop, make sure all 3 layers are lined up, serge a little bit more, stop, make sure all the layers are lined up, and then before you know it, you will be complete with your circle. So I have all 3 layers nice and lined up, and we're ready to start serging. So remember to stop, line everything up, make sure nothing is caught underneath. Remove your clips when you get to them. When you get back to the beginning, serge over it at least a ½ inch and then chain off. You can see how nice our turtleneck section of the shirt turned out. Check that out. Now let's turn our shirt right side out and we can hem it. We are so close to being done. Next, I'm going to hem the bottom of the shirt and the sleeve openings. So what I'm gonna do is serge it first, and then I'm gonna go over to the regular sewing machine and zigzag a hem up. But if you have a cover stitch machine, you can totally use a cover stitch on this step. I just love cover stitching things, but I know everyone doesn't have a cover stitch machine, so I'm going to use a method that just about anyone can achieve at home. Again, if you don't have a serger, you can use a zigzag, an overcast, or an overlock stitch on your regular sewing machine for this step. Now I'm gonna serge all the openings. I folded up my hem a ½ inch towards the inside of my garment, and now I'm going to zigzag my hem down. Remember, you could also do a straight stitch or a cover stitch depending on what kind of fabric you're sewing this out of. Back stitch at the end and cut. The hem is looking great. I used a little zigzag stitch to sew it down. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing to the opening of the sleeves, and then we can try it on and check it out. Woo! I'm back and it's time to attach the skirt. Now that we have the bodice complete for our dress, we're going to work on the skirt. The first thing we need to do for the skirt are sew the side seams together, and I'm going to be using the serger for this, but if you don't have a serger, no worries, use your lightning bolt stitch, use your zigzag stitch, or use your overcast stitch. I have both of my skirt pieces laid out, and we're going to place right sides together and line up your side seams. So what we're going to do is serge together this side seam here and serge together this side seam here. And this is gonna give us a full circle skirt. So let's head over to the serger and serge it up. Let's serge it up. And now we're going to do the other side. Once you have it sewn together, it's going to look something like this. So we have the seam over here serged together, and then the seam over here is nice and serged together. Now it's time to attach your bodice to the skirt. So make sure your skirt is inside out and make sure your top is right side out. Now we're going to insert the bodice into the skirt so that way we can line up the waistlines. And when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're matching our side seams. So make sure that you have your side seam of your bodice lined up with the side seam of the skirt. And right now is a great time to clip your waist together. So line up your side seams and clip them together. And then make sure you have an even amount of stretch for the rest of it. Make sure when you're serging this, you don't pull your waistline and end up with a bunch of gathers to the right or to the left. Because the waist is cut on a curve, it's going to want to stretch a bit more. So if you need to, go ahead and stretch it just a little bit to make it fit, and then clip. And we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. Now that we have our waist all clipped, we're going to serge it together. So let's head over to the serger and attach that skirt. Okay, let's serge these two layers together. When you're sewing in a circle, make sure you're serging a little bit, stop, line it up, and make sure you don't have any folds of fabric under because you don't want to cut a hole in your fresh new garment. Also, when you're sewing super stretchy knits, make sure you check your differential feed and make sure it's not pulling or gathering your knit more than it should. Your stitch should be nice and flat. Now our dress is all sewn together. How easy was that? But we have one final step, and that's hemming the bottom edge of the garment. I'm going to be using a zigzag stitch to do this. If you have a cover stitch machine, you could also use a cover stitch for this step. So for the hem of this circle skirt, I'm going to be folding it up about 1/4 inch, and I'm going to zigzag it down. I'm going to make sure that my zigzag is overlapping this raw edge. So let's head over to the sewing machine and finish this dress up. Okay, let's hem this dress. Make sure to adjust your zigzag for the type of fabric. If you feel like it's pulling or stretching, maybe lengthen your stitch length. Once you get to the end, overlap your stitches, back stitch, and cut. We did it! We finished the turtleneck dress. It is so cute out of this gray rib knit. I just love the way the fabric flows from the waist with the full circle skirt, and we have a nice fitted bodice with a cute little turtleneck. And it looks great on too. This is such an easy dress to put on. One and done. It's like wearing a giant sweatshirt. And it's cute. The great thing about this dress is you can dress it up or you can dress it down and make it casual. Imagine making it out of a super cool gold glittery knit and adding fun accessories and wearing it for the holiday. So cute. Or make it in a casual gray rib knit like I did and wear it every day. Thanks so much for watching Sew Anastasia today. If you have any questions about making this turtleneck dress, leave it down below and I'll get back with you as soon as I can. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and tell me what you thought of this project down below in the comments. I would love to know. And don't forget, you can download this pattern at sewanastasia.com under digital downloads. And if you make the dress, make sure you tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook so that way I can reshare your photos with everyone else and keep everyone inspired and creative. And speaking of social media, make sure you add me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all those other platforms so that way we can stay connected. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.